Let's get back into what we've been doing for months on end, and that is discussing this COVID-19 pandemic. And luckily, we have had an expert here with us throughout every step of this, and I don't know where we would have been without him. That's our good friend, Dr. Dennis Norem from Mercy Health. Dr. Norem, good morning to you.
Good morning to you guys.
How's everything going this morning?
It's going well, but unfortunately it's 7 minutes after 5 here in Arizona.
I can screw up people coast to coast if you just give me a little time to do so.
I was kind of hoping it was 7 minutes after 6, but no such luck.
No such luck. No such luck. Well, as you've no doubt been informed, we had COVID come visit our household.
Yes, I heard. Is everybody doing well now?
Everybody is doing very, very well. I wanted to thank, and this just coincides with this, but I want to thank the experts at Mercy Health for some outstanding care. Wife and daughter who were high risk were taken care of beautifully. My son, I'm not going to say he's coasting through this one, but he's dealing with the equivalent of a pretty nasty cold. And for him, the biggest manifestation of any symptoms that we've noticed so far is stunning amount of fatigue.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent from what I hear. And over the weekend, my granddaughter, who's at Missouri, is a freshman, she called and said she's COVID positive. And again, her symptoms are very similar. She's otherwise healthy, bad cold, little sore throat, loss of taste and smell.
Yeah, the loss of taste and smell is something all three of them have gone through. Two are getting it back fairly slowly. One seems to be coming back day by day, much better.
That's good to hear, and I think for the younger people, the long haul symptoms are fairly infrequent, but they still do occur. So.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to ask you about, because, we've gone beyond the point of contagion. So we've got our notes from the health department, and we've checked our calendars and all that, and we've made it past the point of contagion. How long, because I know it's not a standard, how long do symptoms sometimes stick around with people?
Well, that's a good question. I think for most people, a few weeks is pretty much average, but as we've seen in the past, we have these long haulers that can have fatigue and shortness of breath that can last up for months. And that's a bit of a concern. But again, it's on an individual basis, and it's very hard to predict, except to say that people that are immune suppressed, that have other chronic illnesses are a little more likely to develop those long-haul symptoms and take much longer to recover.
Riles, you were talking about how you passed the point of contagiousness. Doctor, if you do catch COVID, are you contagious even without symptoms? Or in conversely, if you still have symptoms, can you be contagious?
Well, start with the first. I believe that you can be asymptomatic and be contagious because you get the virus replicates, you expel the virus. So there is a smaller chance, and it's probably less likely in asymptomatic people than people who are quite sick, who are coughing and sneezing and spreading those lovely germs all over the place. On the other hand, a person can continue to be a long hauler, have symptoms, but no longer be contagious. And generally that's why we quarantine people for the maximum of 2 weeks and make sure that they have no fever for at least 3 days before turning them loose. So we feel at that point, even though you still may have symptoms left over from your initial infection, you're probably no longer contagious.
And maybe this is a question for the virologist that I ask often, but how is that possible? If you still have symptoms, how you're not contagious? Is this just your body continuing to fight a virus that's no longer present?
Well, I think it's because of the inflammatory response and the way it affects the body and the immune system. So even though you've pretty well eliminated the virus, your body has been subjected to the effects of the virus, and your body's reacted through inflammation, and it's created significant changes within your body itself. So your body has to heal. So I guess I would look at that as part of a healing process. The inability to heal in a timely manner, I think, contributes to the long haul symptoms.
And I guess one more follow-up on the whole procedure. Okay, let's say you've gotten it, you've been symptomatic, you've gone through it, you've come out on the other side, you're no longer contagious. How long do you still test positive for having it?
That's interesting. Most of the time, people would probably no longer test positive after a week to 2 weeks. But there are people that have been recorded that test positive for a month, 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks. And that gets into why we don't routinely recommend retesting people, because it isn't a very helpful measure of anything. It doesn't mean that you're still contagious. It doesn't mean that you haven't recovered. So the fact that you're still showing a positive test after several weeks is not real meaningful.
When you say you don't recommend multiple tests, you're talking about somebody that has tested positive and then to test them again, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. You're tested positive. You've done the proper things, treated whatever you need to do. There's no reason to test you again, unless you get months down the road and you think you're ill again. Then obviously you'd want to go back and be tested.
All right. And if there's one thing that my house has indicated, you can safely distance. You can wipe everything down and keep everything clean and keep people away from one another and manage to come through the other side. It's not the easiest proposition in the world.
No.
But it can be done.
Yes, it's difficult with families. But as you said, if you're motivated and you understand what's going on, it's a very wise, proper move.
So moving on to the next subject that we've been hitting at pretty much every time you're on the last couple of weeks, and that's a booster shots. Johnson & Johnson is getting into the booster shot game. Do you see them being approved anytime soon?
I think so. I think Moderna will probably get approval in the next few weeks, and then Johnson & Johnson will follow. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're talking about boosters and overall in terms of vaccinations. I just read that U.S. has fallen to 41st in the world for vaccination rates, which is really kind of pathetic when we were one of the first countries to have the vaccine to be available. Now in Illinois, we're not doing too bad. We're about 25th in the country. I think we're at 64% fully vaccinated and 81% with one shot, which is pretty good, actually. So we're doing fairly well in Illinois. The bottom of the barrel is West Virginia at 40%. But overall, it's sad to see that the U.S. has fallen behind the rest of the world.
And then you got more people coming out saying that. Let's see, who do we have here? Dr. Eric Topol, founder, director, Scripps Research Translational Institute interview published on Sunday. Up to 90% of Americans may have to be vaccinated to end the COVID-19 pandemic. Quoting him, "Now we need 85 to 95%."
Yeah, I saw that little blurb, and I think he's probably correct. Given the fact that we found that the Delta variant was a very aggressive, very contagious variant, we probably do need to get to 90%, which very few countries have gotten there. But interestingly, one country I read, Puerto Rico, is at 90%. And their rates have fallen dramatically over the past several months. So it shows that things do work if we get people vaccinated, social distance, and masking, which, of course, remains controversial and creates lots of conflict, especially on airplanes.
Yeah, and speaking of conflict, Dr. Fauci's gotten a nice bit of it rolling when he says, it's too early to tell if we can gather for Christmas. Judging by some of the reactions I've seen, I think decisions have already been made, but it's odd that that's coming out now.
Well, I think it gets back to the concern and what we saw last year through the holidays. Things kind of took a little dip before the holidays. People got together for the holidays, and the rates spiked again. And it's not surprising that that happened. At that point in time, we were thinking that People that were vaccinated were unlikely to get illness, but then the Delta variant came along, and we found that people who were vaccinated still got illness, even though they were not nearly as ill. So I think it's based on caution that, hey, we've already seen this show. We don't want to see a repeat.
You talk about the breakthrough cases right there, people catching COVID when they are already vaccinated. Was that something that was known was going to happen? I kind of understand the messaging to get people vaccinated right away. You know, you get this and you'll be better protected. But was that all kind of a secret? I don't want to say, you know, that the medical community was hiding. Was that something that we knew that breakthrough cases was going to be a possibility this whole time?
Well, I think we knew. We didn't know how extensive it was going to be. I remember the discussion early on was, well, you're vaccinated. Yeah, there's a small chance that you could get COVID again, but it's not going to be significant. Well, the Delta variant really changed that thinking. And it gets back to the point we just didn't know at the time that a new variant like that would be that aggressive and cause a lot of people who are vaccinated to become ill. I think we just didn't know.
There's some talk about Merck's new pill. They say their experimental pill for people sick with COVID-19 reduced hospitalizations and deaths by half. And they call that a leap forward in the global fight against the pandemic. If it's cleared by regulators, it would be the first pill shown to treat COVID-19.
Yeah, that's very encouraging news. I believe the monoclonal antibody, which is really the one approved treatment we have now for outpatients before they hit the hospital, that reduced hospitalization rates by, I think it was only in the 20 to 30% range. So this is, if it holds up, a real game changer in terms of being able to treat COVID early before people get sick enough to get in the hospital. But I underline the fact that we're all excited about 50%, but it's only 50%. You know, it's not 90 or 100%. It's not the kind of percents we see with the vaccines.
The comp that I've heard used a lot when talking about that Merck pill was it Tamiflu? Is that the product?
That's the product we use for the flu, yes.
And how successful is Tamiflu in preventing viral replications in the body?
I'm not sure. I don't remember this well, but I know it's less than 50%.
Okay.
Yeah, among patients taking the new one from Merck, 7.3% were either hospitalized or died at the end of 30 days, compared with 14.1% of those getting the dummy pill. At that time period, there were no deaths among those who received the drug, compared with 8 in the placebo group.
Yeah, and again, very, very encouraging news, especially that comment about the reduced death rate.
And one other note on something that's been helping, aspirin, according to what I'm looking at today, a low-dose aspirin, study from George Washington University, low-dose aspirin worked to protect the lungs of COVID-19 patients. Researchers say the drug might minimize the requirement for mechanical ventilation and admission to the ICU, as well as reduce the number of deaths.
Again, very interesting news, and I think it illustrates the fact we're still looking for something that's old, been used for treatment elsewhere, to see if it would be effective. I've seen a couple of things pop up on some drugs that are still being looked at that may be effective, that we've had for years, which we've been looking for those, for the past year and a half, and haven't come up with anything definite yet.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. Results show those who used aspirin a 44% lower risk of having to be ventilated, as well as a 43% lower risk of ICU admission. The mortality rate of those in the hospital reduced by 47%. And aspirin users and non-aspirin users had no significant variations in severe bleeding or apparent thrombosis.
Yeah, and low-dose aspirin, you wouldn't expect to have really many complications in terms of bleeding or other problems. So we'll have to watch to see if that becomes part of the protocol.
All right. Yeah, well, worth a look, though. Dr. Norem, is there anything we should have asked you this morning that you're going to hang up and go, I wish those guys would have asked me about this?
Well, the only other thing is the mask mandates, which have created a lot of controversy. There was just a little study released by the CDC, which occurred here in Arizona, Pima County and Maricopa County, which is Phoenix and Tucson, and they looked at school masking. And they compared schools that masked from day one and schools start here at the end of July to schools that either didn't mask or delayed their masking mandate. And interestingly, they found that schools that delayed masking or didn't mask had 3.5 times the rate of COVID infections.
All right. Well,
So,
just more for the ongoing national argument.
absolutely.
Dr. Norem, as always, we appreciate the time. We appreciate the expertise. We'll look forward to getting together again next week.
All right. See you guys then.
We appreciate it.